It started like an ordinary wedding in Malaysia. Simple, respectful, and full of hope. Amina Yusof, 27 years old, a quiet and devout Muslim woman from Seri Kembangan, believed she had finally found the right man. His name was Arman Hakim, a soft-spoken man who introduced himself as a religious small business owner from Ipoh. The couple had met through a local Islamic matchmaking app, built to help Muslims find halal relationships. For 3 months they talked mostly online, meeting only in public places, always with a chaperone nearby. Arman told Amina he wanted to stay modest until marriage, and that deeply impressed her. In her community, Amina was known as a devoted kindergarten teacher and a caring daughter. She lived with her mother, Puan Norani, who described her as the daughter every mother dreams of. Patient, obedient, faithful. To Amina, Arman felt like an answer to her prayers. He spoke politely, never touched her, and often quoted religious teachings. He said he lived alone, having lost both parents in a car accident. He avoided posting photos online, claiming he simply valued his privacy. The wedding took place in a small hall. Around 100 guests attended. Arman wore a cream baju Malayu with a songkok pulled low. Amina, glowing in soft blue, looked truly happy. But a few relatives noticed something strange. He never made eye contact. His voice sounded off, one of Amina's cousins later said. We thought maybe he was just nervous. Still, the ceremony went smoothly. Vows were exchanged. A short reception followed. Everyone went home believing Amina had finally found her happiness. But that hope collapsed in less than 24 hours. The next morning, Amina was found dead in the bedroom of a small rented apartment in Subang Jaya. She had been strangled with a scarf. There were no signs of forced entry. Nothing was stolen. Her phone lay beside her body. Her suitcase sat half unpacked. And the groom, Arman Hakim, was gone. The news spread across Malaysia like wildfire. Headlines calling it "The Bride Found Dead a Day After Her Wedding" went viral instantly. Shock turned into outrage. Who was this man Amina had married? Why had he vanished right after the murder? Days later, police made a shocking announcement. Arman Hakim was not who he claimed to be, an officer told reporters at a press conference. In fact, he wasn't even a man. And so began one of the strangest, most heartbreaking, and unbelievable murder cases in modern Malaysian history. A story of deception, betrayal, and deadly secrets hidden beneath the surface of a marriage. The morning after the wedding should have been full of joy. But for Amina's mother, something felt wrong immediately. She always called me after morning prayers, Norani later told reporters, her voice shaking. But that morning, there was nothing. At first she assumed Amina was just tired. It had been a long day, and the newlyweds had moved into their small rented apartment in Subang Jaya that same night, meant to be their temporary home while they searched for something more permanent. By mid-morning Norani tried calling again. No answer. She sent a message. It was read but never replied to. She never did that, Norani said. Even when busy, she'd always write back, "I'm fine, Mom." This silence wasn't normal. By 4 in the afternoon, worry had turned into panic. Norani, along with Amina's uncle, drove to the apartment. The landlord handed them a spare key for emergencies. When they opened the door, everything was quiet. The living room looked untouched, neat. Amina's wedding shoes still sat by the entrance. But the silence grew heavier as they moved toward the bedroom. Inside, they found Amina's lifeless body on the mattress. Her tudung was wound tightly around her neck. Her skin was pale, her eyes slightly open. There were no signs of a struggle, no blood, no broken furniture, but something about the scene felt deeply disturbing. Her face, it looked like she'd been crying, her uncle said. It was painful, but it was also shocking. Police were called immediately. Officers from the Subang Jaya district station arrived within the hour. They sealed off the scene and began a preliminary investigation. Amina's phone was still in the room. Her purse, wallet, and jewelry were untouched. 2 suitcases sat in the bedroom, one half unpacked, the other fully zipped shut. But one thing was missing: Arman Hakim. The landlord confirmed that a man matching Arman's description had checked in the night before with 2 duffel bags. Security footage from the residential complex showed the couple entering the building around 9:45 that evening, straight from the wedding reception. Amina looked tired but happy. Arman was quiet, walking slightly ahead of her, his face mostly hidden under a mask and cap. That was the last time anyone saw him. By morning, the cameras captured only one figure leaving the building. At 5:37 a.m., a tall person in a long hooded sweatshirt was seen dragging a suitcase. But the face was hidden, and the gate camera failed to catch a license plate. There were no signs of a break-in or robbery, said Inspector Farid, one of the lead investigators. Whoever did this was someone she trusted. Neighbors interviewed later said they hadn't heard anything unusual. No screaming, no arguing, just the ordinary quiet of morning. But one older neighbor remembered something odd. She'd come by to borrow a hair dryer. She looked happy, but tired. She introduced him to me. He didn't speak, just nodded. As police dug deeper, nothing added up. Arman had used a fake ID to rent the apartment. The phone number registered under his name was a prepaid, untraceable line. His social media accounts had only been created 4 months earlier, and every post was either a religious quote or wedding planning content. No work history. No family photos. No old friends. Who was Arman Hakim, and why did the night that was supposed to begin Amina's new life end in death? The timeline leading up to Amina's murder was short, but every moment carried a quiet tension nobody noticed until it was too late. After the wedding ceremony wrapped around 6 in the evening, Amina and Arman arrived at the rented apartment just before 10. Security cameras caught their arrival. Amina gave a small smile to the building guard while Arman kept his head down, pulling his cap even lower. Inside the apartment, there were no witnesses to what actually happened. But through forensic evidence and the post-mortem examination, investigators pieced together Amina Yusuf's final hours. The couple likely spent no more than 2 hours together before things went terribly wrong. Amina had changed out of her wedding dress. A pair of casual clothes sat neatly folded on a chair. Her phone's browser history showed several searches made around midnight, questions about first night etiquette in Islam, and YouTube videos on how to make a husband feel comfortable. Detectives believe Amina was trying to settle into her role as a wife. Nervous, but hopeful. But at some point in that room, something happened. One possible clue was found on the sheets, slightly wrinkled but showing no signs of a struggle. On the pillowcase, however, faint traces of blood were found, not from a violent attack, but possibly from friction or a minor injury. Police theorized that Amina may have discovered Arman's true identity, not through confrontation, but perhaps during an intimate moment. The theory, later backed by forensic evidence and psychological profiling, was that Amina realized Arman was not biologically male. Investigators suspected Armin was, in fact, a woman concealing her identity, a secret kept through the entire engagement and even on the wedding night itself. "We believe there was a moment of exposure," said Inspector Farid. And in that moment, something snapped. Trust, fear, panic. It's unclear whether Amina threatened to tell someone or simply reacted in shock. But police believe it triggered a violent, desperate response. Around 1:30 in the morning, Amina was strangled with her own hijab. The autopsy revealed bruising around her neck and collarbone, but no other defensive wounds, suggesting she may have been caught completely off guard or frozen with fear. It was fast, the forensic pathologist said. She lost consciousness within a minute. After the killing, the attacker appears to have stayed in the apartment for several more hours. Investigators found signs that someone had showered. The towels were damp, and traces of Amina's foundation and eyeliner were found in the bathroom sink. Only one suitcase was missing, the one containing Armin's clothes and personal belongings. Every photo from their wedding had been deleted from Amina's phone. At 5:37 a.m., the masked killer left the building, caught once again on camera. This time the hoodie was zipped up and the face was fully covered by mask and cap. The figure moved fast, confident, no sign of panic, no glancing back. The killing had been calculated. Quiet. Clean. No fingerprints left behind. No weapon needed, just a scarf, and a secret deadly enough to kill four. By the next day, Amina's body had been found, and her killer had vanished. But the truth behind the murder was only just beginning to surface. When authorities officially opened the murder investigation into Amina Yusuf, they had very little to go on. A body, a missing suspect, and a fake name. The case was immediately classified as a suspicious homicide, and a special team from the Criminal Investigation Division was assigned to lead it. Inspector Farid Zulkifli, who had previously worked high-profile domestic violence cases, was put in charge. His first move was to trace Armin Hakim, the man Amina had just married. But almost immediately, red flags started appearing. The ID Armin had used to rent the apartment turned out to be fake. The number didn't match the National Registry. The address listed on the lease led to an abandoned shop lot. Investigators then tried tracing Armin's phone, hoping for location data, but the number was registered under a fictitious name using a prepaid SIM card, the kind sold anonymously in convenience stores. Call records showed no activity in the past 24 hours. It was a digital dead end. Armin's social media accounts raised even more suspicion. Every one of them had been created within the past 6 months. No personal photos, no tagged friends, just Islamic quotes, wedding preparation posts, and a few pictures of food. All the accounts used similar usernames with slight variations. There was no digital footprint before 2024, one cybercrime analyst said. That's almost impossible these days unless you're hiding something. Police turned to Amina's close circle for answers. Friends described the courtship as fast but modest. Amina had told them Armin was shy and didn't like showing his face in public. None of them had ever seen Armin without a mask or cap, not even at the wedding. But one clue came from an old message on Amina's phone. Days before the wedding, she'd sent a voice note to a friend, saying, "Sometimes I feel like I don't really know him. He's kind, but secretive. Like he's always hiding something." Investigators also began pulling footage from nearby buildings and traffic cameras. The recordings confirmed the suspect left the residential complex on foot around 5:37 a.m., dragging a black suitcase. After that, nothing. No taxis booked under his name, no bus or train tickets. It was as if he'd vanished into thin air. Then came a small breakthrough, thanks to a local ride-share driver who came forward on his own. He asked me to pick him up from an alley near Jalan SS19, the driver said. I thought it was strange. It was early, and he was wearing a huge hoodie. Didn't say a word, just asked to be dropped off at the LRT station. Police reviewed footage from that station and finally found a blurry image of the suspect entering the platform, again masked, cap pulled low. But this time, the footage revealed something new. The suspect had a slight limp. It was a minor detail, but a critical one. A search began for anyone matching Armin's general build and walk. Meanwhile, the forensic team found traces of spirit gum on a small tissue in the apartment's trash bin, the kind typically used to attach prosthetics or fake facial hair. It changed everything. This was the first hard evidence that Armin wasn't a man, Inspector Farid said. This was no longer just about a runaway husband. It was about a carefully constructed identity, and a chilling case of deception that ended in murder. The hunt was on. On the 10th day of the investigation, Malaysian police received a tip that flipped everything they thought they knew about the case. A woman named Siti Marissa, 29, walked into the Ipoh police station, visibly shaken. What she said changed the entire direction of the investigation. I know Armin, she told the officer, but that's not his real name. Her name is Nurul Hana binti Ahmad. She's a woman. According to Marissa, she and Hannah had once been close roommates during their diploma studies in Penang. Hannah had been quiet, boyish, and often wore oversized clothes. After college, they lost touch. But 2 years ago, Marissa spotted a social media profile that looked strikingly like Hannah, now going by the name Armin Hakim. I thought it was just cosplay or something, Marissa said. But then I saw the wedding photo in the news, and I knew it was her. Police moved quickly on Marissa's tip. Using Hannah's real name, they uncovered records buried under layers of deception. Nurul Hana had a history of mental health struggles, including identity confusion and severe gender dysphoria. She had reportedly spent years trying to live as a man. She was known for dressing and acting like a man even back in college, a former classmate said. But no one imagined she'd take it this far. Police visited Hannah's last known address in Kampong Manjoy. The small rented room was empty, but inside, investigators found wigs, chest binders, a set of men's clothing, and forged documents, including a fake ID under the name Armin Hakim. There was also a notebook. Inside were pages filled with unsettling thoughts. Maybe if I become someone else, I'll be loved. They only see me as broken, but I can be whole if I act right. Amina believes in me. I can't let her see who I really am. The entries painted the picture of a deeply conflicted person, desperate to escape her reality and build a new identity at any cost. But the final few pages alarmed officers the most. She's asking questions. I think she knows. I can't lose everything now. If she finds out, what will she do? What will I do? The timeline matched the day before Amina's murder. With this evidence, police secured an arrest warrant for Nurul Hana. Her face was released to the public alongside a new photo pulled from old school records. Tips started pouring in from across the country. 2 days later, she was spotted in Butterworth, Penang, staying at a budget hotel under yet another fake name. Hotel staff reported that she rarely left her room and always wore a cap and mask, even indoors. She was arrested without resistance. In her booking photo, her hair was short and uneven. She showed no emotion, only an empty stare. When police asked why she did it, Hannah whispered just one line, "I just wanted to be loved." The truth had finally surfaced. What began as a love story had turned into a haunting tale of identity, deception, and death. The woman Amina married wasn't a man. Wasn't a husband. She was a stranger carrying a secret so deep, she chose murder rather than face exposure. On the 13th day after the murder, Nurul Hannah binti Ahmad, also known as Arman Hakim, was officially arrested in a rundown hotel in Butterworth, Penang. It was 2:17 in the morning when officers from the Serious Crimes Division stormed room 206, after tracking her movements through security footage and local tips. She didn't resist. In fact, she opened the door before they even knocked, almost as if she'd been waiting for them. The arrest was quiet, no struggle, no words. She looked exhausted, one officer recalled, like someone who'd been carrying a lie for far too long. At the station, Hannah went through hours of questioning. She answered most questions in flat, one-word responses, her voice monotone. But what shocked officers most was her complete lack of remorse. When asked if she killed Amina, she simply said, "Yes." She found out. "I had no choice." When asked why she didn't just leave, why she'd taken things this far, she whispered, "She would have told everyone. I would have lost everything. My life would have been over." Psychiatrists were brought in to evaluate her mental state. They described her as mentally stable, though emotionally shattered. She showed signs of narcissistic tendencies, delusional thinking, and a desperate fear of abandonment. But she understood what she'd done. She had planned it. Court documents later revealed disturbing details. She had spent months practicing a male voice using YouTube tutorials. She'd ordered a fake beard online and practiced applying it. Her forged ID had been made using templates purchased on the dark web. She had studied Islamic marriage procedures and memorized the expected duties of a husband to blend into the role during the wedding. Her plan had been to live as Arman until she felt safe enough to quietly disappear. But the plan collapsed the moment Amina noticed something was off on their wedding night. Police believe she may have seen Hannah's chest binder, or perhaps discovered surgical tape. She likely started asking questions Hannah couldn't answer. And instead of confessing, she killed. Public outrage exploded once Hannah's identity was revealed. Social media filled with anger, disbelief, and grief. Many asked how this could have happened, how someone had managed to deceive a religious family, an Islamic marriage system, and even the bride herself. The case reached its turning point when Hannah was formally charged under Section 302 of the Malaysian Penal Code for murder, a charge carrying either the death penalty or life imprisonment. In court, she remained emotionless, dressed in standard orange prisoner clothing, her short cropped hair barely covering her face. When the judge read the charge, Hannah simply nodded. Amina's family sat in the front row. Her mother, Puan Norani, wept quietly throughout the hearing. "I trusted that person with my daughter's life," she said outside the courthouse. "And she took it from her." The turning point wasn't just the arrest. It was the moment Malaysia saw the face of a woman who had forged an entire identity, exploited religion and trust, and committed murder, all in the name of fear, control, and a twisted idea of love. The trial was about to begin, but the damage had already been done. A family shattered, a life stolen, a country left stunned. The courtroom fell silent as the verdict was read. Nurul Hannah binti Ahmad, who had lived under the stolen identity of Arman Hakim, was found guilty of murdering Amina Yusuf. In his closing remarks, the judge stated, "This was not a crime of passion. This was a premeditated deception followed by a deliberate act of violence. This court sees no justification for taking an innocent life. Hannah was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Prosecutors had initially sought the death penalty under Section 302 of the Malaysian Penal Code. However, after psychological evaluations and expert testimony, the court opted for life imprisonment, citing mental instability, identity confusion, and no prior criminal record as mitigating factors. But for Amina's family, this wasn't justice. It was simply survival. "My daughter had a kind, pure heart," Puan Norani said outside the courthouse. "She trusted too easily, believed too easily, and that woman used it against her." The ripple effects of the case spread far beyond the courtroom, across all of Malaysia. The story dominated headlines for weeks. It sparked nationwide debates about identity deception, mental health, and the vulnerabilities within religious marriage systems. Several Islamic councils faced criticism for the lack of thorough vetting before approving weddings. In response, some states began implementing stricter screening procedures, including identity verification through biometric systems and private interviews with both parties before a marriage could be approved. Meanwhile, online discussions turned toxic. Some blamed Amina for not noticing the warning signs. Others sympathized with Hannah's inner turmoil, while still condemning her actions. Psychologists pointed to the case as a tragic example of what can happen when deep psychological struggles go untreated. "Hannah was clearly suffering," said Dr. Charles Lamb, a psychiatrist who studied her case after the trial. "But instead of seeking help, she built a life on lies. And when that lie was threatened, she responded with deadly violence." Amina's story also became a painful cautionary tale on women's forums and within family circles. Her friends remembered her not as a victim, but as someone full of life and faith. "She always believed love was something sacred," said Liana, Amina's closest friend. "She just never knew that behind that love was a mask." In prison, Hannah reportedly spends most of her time in isolation. Authorities confirmed that due to the sensitivity of the case and the public attention surrounding it, she's held separately from other inmates. She rarely speaks, and when she does, it's brief. Guards say she has refused all visits, including from her own family. The only item she keeps with her is a small notebook, believed to be the same one investigators found during her arrest, pages filled with a fantasy of a life that never existed, a marriage that was never real, and a love that ended in death. The aftermath of this case is something Malaysia won't soon forget. It exposed dark gaps in how identity, trust, and love can be manipulated, and left behind a grieving family, a shaken community, and a country still asking, how could this happen?